Have you ever looked at a woman in her 50s or 60s and thought, she feels different now? Not louder, not colder in the obvious way, just less easy to reach. Her smile may still be polite. Her words may still be thoughtful. She may still do what needs to be done, still show up, still care. But something in her has changed. Something has become more guarded, more measured, less freely available. And maybe you've felt this in yourself too. No one tells you this after 50. But many women do not become emotionally harder because they stop feeling. They become harder because they have felt too much for too long, and too often without enough care in return. That is a quiet truth. From the outside, people sometimes call it bitterness, or moodiness, or distance. They say she's changed. She's not as warm as she used to be. She used to be softer. But those descriptions often miss the deeper story. Because emotional hardness in mature women is very rarely random. It usually has a history. Along one. It is built slowly. Through disappointments that were absorbed but never fully spoken. Through years of being understanding when others were careless. Through showing grace where there was little reciprocity. Through being expected to keep the peace, stay patient, remain kind, and not make too much of what hurt. At first, a woman may not even notice it happening. She just begins protecting herself in small ways. She shares a little less. She explains a little less. She expects a little less. She offers warmth more carefully. She becomes slower to trust what people say and more attentive to what they actually do. And over time, these small adjustments gather into something larger. Not cruelty, not indifference, a kind of emotional armor. Quiet, polished, often invisible to everyone except the woman wearing it. But no one really talks about the fact that this armor is often made from unmet need. A woman may have spent years giving emotional labor to a marriage that survived on her maturity more than mutual intimacy. She may have raised children with devotion, only to find that once they grew older, they loved her, but no longer really saw her. She may have stayed loyal to friends who enjoyed her listening ear, but disappeared when her own heart felt heavy. She may have been the one people admired for strength, while quietly starving for tenderness. That changes a person, not all at once. Not dramatically, but deeply, psychologically. When someone repeatedly learns that softness is not met with safety, the mind adapts. The heart adapts too. It begins to calculate, even unconsciously. It begins to ask, what happens when I tell the full truth? What happens when I need something? What happens when I stop carrying so much? And if the answer, over many years, has often been disappointment, dismissal, awkwardness, or emotional neglect, then warmth starts becoming more selective. This is not because the woman becomes incapable of love. It is because love without protection has cost her too much. And perhaps this is especially true for women in this age group, because many of them were not raised in a language of emotional self-protection. They were raised in duty, in patience, in sacrifice, in endurance, in being the bigger person, in letting things go, in understanding others, in staying decent even when others were emotionally careless. For a long time, that may have felt like maturity, and some of it was maturity, but some of it was survival. That distinction becomes clearer later in life. A woman in her 20s or 30s may still believe that if she loves well enough, explains clearly enough, stays loyal enough, forgives enough, then the relationship will become what it is supposed to become. She still has hope that effort will transform people, that patience will deepen intimacy, that being needed means being valued. By 50 or 60, many women have learned something more complicated. They have learned that not everyone changes because you love them well. Not everyone becomes deeper because you stayed. Not everyone notices your sacrifices simply because they benefited from them. And not everyone who says, "I care," knows how to care in a way that actually reaches you. That realization can make a woman look harder from the outside. But what people often call hardness is sometimes grief that has stopped asking to be understood. A woman who once spoke openly may become quieter. A woman who once gave second and third chances may become more exact. A woman who once tried to smooth over tension may begin letting silence do its work. A woman who once kept hoping someone would finally understand her may stop trying to translate herself into easier language. This is not always anger, sometimes it is exhaustion, sometimes it is dignity, sometimes it is the end of emotional begging, and maybe you've seen this happen in ordinary moments. A mother receives a short message from her grown child after days of silence. Years ago, she would have rushed in with warmth, questions, concern, and maybe a trace of hurt hidden underneath. Now she simply responds kindly and leaves the rest alone. Not because she does not care, because she is tired of chasing closeness that does not come naturally anymore. A wife notices her husband still prefers surface conversation after all these years. She no longer pleads for deeper emotional presence. She no longer opens the same tender subject only to be met with discomfort. She becomes practical, civil, even loving in the functional sense. But a room inside her quietly closes. A friend realizes she is always the one who listens, reaches out, remembers, softens. One day, she stops. And suddenly the friendship becomes strangely thin. That too leaves a mark. These are not dramatic endings. They are slow emotional teachings, and the heart learns from repetition. This matters because many women do not become emotionally harder due to one great betrayal. They become harder through accumulation, through hundreds of small moments in which they felt less prioritized than they hoped, less understood than they needed, less protected than they deserved. A careless remark here, an absence there, a need dismissed, a vulnerability mishandled, a truth minimized, a season of carrying more than anyone noticed, a lifetime of being respected for resilience, but not always loved in a way that let them rest. That is how hardness forms quietly, not as performance. As protection, there's also something else that happens with age. A woman becomes better at pattern recognition. She has seen enough by now. She can tell when someone is apologizing only to move on quickly. She can sense when affection appears only when something is needed. She notices who grows uncomfortable around emotional honesty. She hears the tone beneath the words. She understands the family script. She recognizes the old dance before the music even starts. And because she recognizes more, she tolerates less. This can make her seem sharper, less forgiving, more guarded, but in many cases, she is not becoming meaner. She's becoming less willing to betray her own perception. That is an important difference. In younger years, many women doubt themselves more. They override discomfort. They explain away red flags. They want to be fair, loving, decent, and open-hearted. So they keep giving people the benefit of the doubt, long after the pattern is already clear. Later in life, something shifts. A woman begins to trust her tiredness. She trusts the knot in her chest after certain conversations. She trusts the emptiness she feels around certain people. She trusts how long she has waited. She trusts what has not changed, and once she trusts that, softness is no longer offered automatically. It must be earned by emotional safety. This is why some mature women appear more reserved, even when they still have deep hearts. They are not withholding because they have nothing left to give. They are withholding because they finally understand the value of what they have been giving away. That understanding often comes with sadness. Because beneath emotional hardness there is often an older sorrow. The sorrow of realizing how long she kept hoping certain relationships would become more mutual, than they ever truly were. The sorrow of looking back and seeing how often she was admired for coping instead of cared for with tenderness. The sorrow of recognizing that some people loved her reliability more than her reality. That can be a painful thing to admit, especially for women who built much of their identity around being loving, generous, capable, and emotionally available. Because if she becomes less available now, she may ask herself difficult questions. Am I becoming selfish? Am I becoming cold? Am I losing my softness? Or am I finally protecting what no one else was careful with? That last question is where the real conversation begins, because emotional hardness is not always a failure of character. Sometimes it is a late-life defense against repeated emotional overexposure. Sometimes it is what happens when a woman realizes that being endlessly understanding did not necessarily make her deeply understood. Sometimes it is the outer shape of inner disappointment. Sometimes it is the only way she knows to keep some part of herself from being worn down completely. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. Many women have felt this shift inside themselves and wondered whether they were becoming someone they did not want to be, when in truth, they may have simply been responding to pain that never had enough room to speak. And if you enjoy this kind of honest, thoughtful conversation, you may consider subscribing. There is something quietly healing about hearing your own inner life spoken in words that do not judge it. We need to look at the hidden pain underneath it. And the question many women carry privately, but rarely say aloud, is this hardness really who I am now? Or is it the shape my heart took after being left unprotected for too long? What looks like hardness on the outside is often something much more tender on the inside. That is where we need to begin, because when a woman becomes emotionally harder with age, people often respond only to what they can see. They notice the shorter answers, the stronger boundaries, the less eager warmth, the way she no longer explains herself as much, the way she can sit in silence now without rushing to fill it, the way she no longer chases, no longer pleads, no longer overextends in the same old way. And to some people, that can feel uncomfortable. They may think she has become distant. They may say she is guarded. They may quietly miss the version of her that was easier to lean on. But no one really asks what that change cost her. No. One asks how many years of disappointment it took to teach her that softness needed protection. No one asks how many times she reached with sincerity and came back with silence. No one asks how many times she told the truth carefully, only to feel misunderstood, minimized, or emotionally left alone inside it. This is why emotional hardness in later life is so often misread. People see the result. They rarely see the history. And the history matters, because underneath that harder surface there is usually not a woman who stopped caring. There is usually a woman who cared deeply, repeatedly, and often beyond what was healthy for her. A woman who stayed emotionally available long after it was nourishing. A woman who kept hoping that patience would eventually lead to closeness, that loyalty would eventually be noticed, that consistency would eventually be returned in the same language she had been offering it. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't. But where it wasn't, the heart kept score quietly, not in a petty way. In a human way. It remembered which conversations left her feeling foolish for having opened up. It remembered which relationships felt warm only when she was useful. It remembered who liked her strength, but had no place for her sadness. It remembered how often her role in the family was solid and important, but not deeply emotionally held. And over time, memory becomes self-protection. This is something many women understand only later. The heart does not just break from big betrayals. It also changes shape from chronic emotional undernourishment, from years of giving more reassurance than receiving, from years of sensing other people's moods while no one asks about her own, from years of being the one who notices, the one who adjusts, the one who smooths, the one who steadies, the one who forgives, That kind of one-sided emotional labor does not always create anger first. Often, it creates fatigue, and fatigue changes how love comes out. A woman may still love deeply, but she stops packaging that love in the old ways. She no longer translates everything into softness. She no longer empties herself into every conversation. She no longer mistakes immediate availability for care. She no longer believes that being endlessly understanding is the same as being emotionally safe. This is where people often get confused. They think warmth disappearing means love disappeared. But that is not always true. Sometimes warmth becomes quieter because it is no longer being spent, where it will be taken for granted. Sometimes care remains, but innocence is gone. Sometimes love is still there, but it has learned not to arrive with open hands every time. And maybe that is what makes this stage of life so emotionally complex. A woman may not feel hateful. She may not even feel openly angry. She may simply feel done with certain illusions, done hoping some people will become more emotionally mature than they have shown themselves to be, done expecting deep reciprocity from people who have always preferred comfort over intimacy, done over-explaining her pain in a language others can tolerate, done handing out softness where there is no reverence for what it costs her to remain soft. That is not bitterness in the simple way. People say it is often the end of fantasy, the fantasy that love always transforms people. The fantasy that if you are good enough, gentle enough, patient enough, emotionally intelligent enough, you can teach others how to meet you. The fantasy that your sacrifices are automatically understood because they were visible. Later in life, many women begin seeing that visibility and understanding are not the same thing. A woman may have worked for everyone, worried for everyone, remembered everything, kept the emotional weather stable for years, and still find that the people around her do not truly know what it felt like to be her. That realization is lonely. It is also clarifying. Because once a woman sees that being needed is not the same as being emotionally cherished, she starts becoming more selective, not only about what she gives, but about what she continues calling love. This is where emotional hardness can actually contain wisdom. Not all hardness is healthy, of course. Sometimes pain does make a person defensive in ways that close off joy, closeness, and tenderness altogether. Sometimes the wound begins speaking louder than the woman herself. That can happen, and it deserves compassion, not judgment, but often in mature women. What looks like hardness is something more refined than that. It is discernment. It is the ability to sense which relationships require self-erasure and which allow truth. It is the wisdom to recognize when your body is bracing before your mind catches up. It is the refusal to keep giving your most alive emotional self to people who only know how to consume it. It is the decision to stop begging for what should be mutual. And perhaps that is one of the deepest shifts of all. Younger women may still try to prove her worth through emotional generosity. An older woman often begins to ask a different question. Where am I actually safe enough to remain soft? That question changes everything, because the goal is not to become hard for the sake of hardness. The goal is to stop confusing vulnerability with obligation, to stop thinking everyone deserves access to your tenderness simply because you are capable of giving it, to stop treating your emotional openness as a duty. This is especially meaningful after 50. Because by then many women have carried identities that left little room for their own inner needs. Wife, mother, daughter, sister, caregiver, peacemaker, helper, the dependable one, the wise one, the strong one. These identities may have given life meaning. They may also have taken something. A woman can wake up later in life and realize that what has hardened is not her ability to love, but her willingness to disappear. That is a very important difference. She is no longer willing to make everyone comfortable while privately feeling empty. She is no longer willing to be the bridge in every strained relationship. She is no longer willing to expose her heart in places where it will be met with practical responses instead of presence. She is no longer willing to betray what she now clearly sees. And yet, even when this change is healthy, it can still bring grief, because there is often a part of her that remembers who she used to be. More open, more hopeful, more eager to repair, more willing to believe that if she just stayed soft enough, honest enough, generous enough, people would finally understand. When that version of a woman begins fading, she may mourn her, not because the old softness was foolish, but because it was sincere. She meant it. She loved from that place. She lived from that place. She wanted closeness from that place. And losing innocence, even when necessary, is still a loss. This is why healing in later life is not about forcing yourself back into old softness. It is not about becoming who you were before disappointment taught you caution. It is not about pretending the pain did not shape you. Healing is often something gentler. It is learning how to keep your wisdom without letting it turn into permanent emotional exile. It is learning how to protect yourself without worshiping distance. It is learning that boundaries do not have to become walls everywhere. It is learning that tenderness is still possible, but it must live in places that honor it. That may mean fewer relationships. It may mean quieter relationships. It may mean new standards. It may mean allowing some misunderstandings instead of explaining yourself into exhaustion. It may mean letting certain dynamics fall away if they only survived by consuming your softness. That kind of change can feel lonely at first, but there is another kind of loneliness too, the loneliness of remaining emotionally available in ways that slowly erase you. Women know that loneliness very well. And after enough years, they choose the cleaner pain, the pain of change, the pain of honesty, the pain of no longer performing emotional comfort on demand. That pain, while difficult, can lead somewhere freer, because when a woman stops spending so much energy preserving old versions of herself for other people, something opens. Not all at once, quietly. She may notice that she rests differently, that her mind becomes less crowded, that resentment softens when overgiving softens, that she no longer feels so entangled in every emotional shift around her, that she begins to trust herself more than she trusts appearances. She may even begin to feel tenderness returning, but differently, more conscious, more chosen, less desperate, less eager to rescue, less willing to mother everyone emotionally, more rooted in self-respect. This is the tenderness many mature women deserve, not the softness that leaves them exposed to repeated carelessness, not the warmth that is available to anyone who asks, but the kind that remains alive because it is finally protected by truth. If this speaks to something you have felt in yourself, you are not alone. Many women worry that becoming harder means becoming less loving, when sometimes it simply means becoming less naive about where love can safely go. And maybe that is the real question under all of this. Not why am I harder now, but what has my heart learned? What is it still protecting? What is it no longer willing to pretend? And perhaps most importantly, where can I still be soft without disappearing? That is not a small question. It is one of the deepest questions of later life, because emotional maturity is not endless accommodation. It is not silence in the face of repeated neglect. It is not being so understanding that you leave yourself behind. Real maturity has honesty in it. It has boundaries in it. It has grief in it. It has self-respect in it. And yes, sometimes from the outside, that can look like hardness, but inside, it may simply be a woman finally telling the truth about what her heart can and cannot survive anymore. You can share your thoughts in the comments if this resonates with you. So many women carry this shift silently, wondering whether something is wrong with them, when often something much deeper is happening. They are finally recognizing the cost of staying emotionally unprotected. And if you enjoy these kinds of quiet, thoughtful conversations, you may consider subscribing. There is something healing about hearing hidden emotional realities named without shame. The truth is, some women do become emotionally harder with age, but often, what hardens is not the heart itself. It is the boundary around the part that was never handled gently enough. And sometimes, that is not the end of softness. It is the beginning of wiser love.